because I've been waiting for this to interview this special young man. He's a young man. Look at him. Look at him. I want to say I grew up listening to him, but he was growing up too because he's a young man in the person of the great, and I say great. He's owner of CEO of Nelson Media and Investments. He is Mr. FM himself, the Quiet Storm man. I think a whole lot of children are here because of this man. Phil Nelson, how are you,
My
sir?
friend, I am fine. How are you?
All right.
Now, I do
Uh,
receive all those gracious compliments, man. I do receive that.
well, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. But you are a young person. I mean, look at you.
Well, I guess, it's in the eyes of the beholder. I mean, I've been straddled with grace as far as age is concerned, and I'm definitely not
Mhm.
complaining about that. But, I've been around for a minute. But
Oh, okay. Real a short minute. A
sure,
short minute.
I'll receive that too. I can accept it.
But you've done a lot. You've done a lot. You've done a lot. And I want to tell me about first. I'm jumping around for a minute.
Mm.
The latest award you got, the Life Achievement Award. Tell me about that.
Oh, man, that was a big surprise for me because you really don't work for the acknowledgement. If you really like what you do it as a service,
Hmm.
and it's been 40 years, that's a long time to be serving the public. 20
Right.
all the way around for radio. And, that's combined Hampton Roads because I did
Hmm.
20 years in Hampton Roads on WOWI 103 Jams. And that
Yeah.
with the combined radio stations when they bought and sold, the merger of different radio stations with the company.
Hmm.
And then I came to Washington, D.C. at Howard University Radio, WHUR 96.3, which is actually the home of the
Hmm.
original Quiet Storm, where it started back in 1975. And I
Okay.
feel honored to be able to carry on that tradition. See, DC is very, very particular about their heritage, their radio heritage, and especially that Quiet
Hmm.
Storm. They're very, very, very sensitive about that and hold that dear. So I really feel very honored to be a part of that legacy. And then I went and did gospel on Radio One's Praise 104.1. And then I decided to pretty much, when COVID hit, I was going to go ahead and retire because I had
Hmm.
already spent so much time in the business. And radio changes, it shifts, it goes ups and down, up and down, and it's not
Sure.
like the game was when we started back in the day, back in the 70s and the 80s. So I said I had done my time, um, and then started concentrating on my own business. But this comes along, and I was like, wow, somebody must have been paying attention. you know,
Amen. Oh yes, they are.
yeah, I mean,
Because,
and it really touched my heart. And I'm always forever grateful for any type of acknowledgments that come my way because, like I said earlier, I don't work for the acknowledgement. I work to
right.
serve.
Right.
And I want people to feel and understand who I am through who I am as a person. That's why these interviews are very important because a lot of times, especially back in the day, we didn't get these one-on-ones, to find out
Right.
who the person is behind the microphone. You really get a chance to know the person through the music or if they call the radio
Hmm.
station, the requests and dedications. And I consider myself to be a personal guy when it came to that because I always wanted to get to know my listeners. So I guess
Right.
in conjunction with the Lifetime Achievement Award, the radio show, also my volunteerism with my church. I'm the minister of music for my ministry or our ministry at Agape Family
Hmm.
Faith Ministries in Maryland.
Hmm.
And I was just overwhelmed. I said, God, thank you so much for this acknowledgement. And I just want to continue to walk in that grace and whatever else comes, let's do it. I'm just hanging on to
Let
the
it
rope and
come.
just swinging, man. Let's just go ahead and take the ride and see where it leads. So, yes, I feel blessed and honored.
And I'm blessed and honored to have you. Uh, Being a minister of music for 35 years, I get a lot of my music from the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I would listen to you and write it down
Wow.
and then go to the keyboard
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like it is now. You can download stuff
Right.
and it'll put the notes out for you and all that. We had to listen to it and
Exactly. Yeah.
couldn't get
Those,
no
are, look,
words,
look,
no
look, look,
lyrics.
those were good old days now.
Yeah, they were good
You
old
had you
days,
had
all
you
right.
had to actually wait until that song came on
That's
to
right.
try to figure it out. And A lot of times you had to call me or the jock that was on board. What was that song you just played?
Yeah.
5 songs back. What was it? And that made listenership special. You know,
that's true.
Radio
that's
was a lifestyle when I was on the air. You know, and being that it was a lifestyle, like you wore clothes, because you planned to listen to the radio at night. You knew that at 10 o'clock or 7 o'clock, when that Quiet Storm came on or that show came on that you liked, you gathered around the radio, you know, and it became part of, like you joked me a few minutes ago about the babies, you know, relationships and marriages and that sort of thing kicked off. And I'm ready to, write some W-9s, man, and do some back taxes because I'm sure I can collect, because, the kids are grown now and they have kids. So, I should be able to make off like a bandit. But no, really.
Calls in the Fed. Calls in the Fed.
Right.
A whole lot of people walking around.
Those were the good days. They were.
Yes. Yeah. And people don't realize that. Like Luther's A House Is Not a Home. You wouldn't hear it in mainstream. You would really hear it during the Quiet Storm at that time.
Right. Because
it took him a while to cross over.
Well, one thing about the Quiet Storm, which has been lost now because of formatics, the Quiet Storm is a specialty show. It never was meant to be formatted. Okay. When I started the show, I played it out of an Army trunk of records in 45.
Really? Okay.
That I pulled out every night, and I formatted my own show. It's supposed to be separate from 6 to 10, 10 to 3, 3 to 7 at the Storm, or Your Love and Dance Romance show came on at 7 o'clock. It was up to the jock that was on board. You entrusted the jock or the radio announcer that was in control of that show that they were going to take it where it needed to go and accumulate the numbers. And that's the way it's supposed to have been. The biggest success I had with that show is when I was not formatted,
Okay.
And the people really drove that show. I played what the people wanted, when they wanted it. You could also play based on the weather. If it was hot, you play music that generated, the best listenership toward a warm summer night. If it was raining, you would play more songs when it was raining. If it was cold, you play stuff to keep you warm. See, that's something that formatics can't do. And that's why that show was so special at that time. That's one of those special things. And we're talking about Luther Vandross's album cuts, that show was dedicated to playing the album cuts, not the stuff that you heard during the day. That's what made that show so popular. I played jazz. I played the album cuts of Luther, stuff you didn't hear. House Without a Home, became a hit, but it was an album cut at first because if you remember, Never Too Much was the hit. Right. So we started going through that with Don't You Know That and A House Is Not a Home and other albums like that. You take them album cuts because people were buying albums at that time, and they didn't hear them on the radio. Where did you hear them? You heard them at night, and you knew it was guaranteed. But they didn't play the. It was guaranteed if you came. It was guaranteed at nighttime. You would come to 103 Jams at that particular time. That's where I was at Hampton Roads. You would hear those songs. You would hear more, and then you had the opportunity to participate as well.
I heard them songs. And that's all
man, if you got some babies, I want a W-9, man.
I don't want to talk about it. But anyway, I see them and see. I let him on, so it's my fault. Let's go back. When did you know you wanted to do this?
Well, I was a young kid. I had an admiration for music ever since I've been 11, 12 years old. I actually threw my first party. I think I was about 11 or 12. My mother let me invite some friends over because I had this fascination for radio when I was a very young kid. About 10 years old, I used to sit on my porch and just listen to WREP, WPC. After it became, after Bishop changed it to secular music, it was on the AM dial. And I was intrigued by the mechanics of how it went from one element to the other. Commercial, you hear a jingle, a drop. I said, man, I think I can do that. I said, I was always a creative kid. I said, maybe I can do that too. So I don't know if you remember back in the day, you had those component sets where you had the turntable, the radio, and a cassette in one. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I would set up something on a cassette, put a record on top, and have something on the radio, and then I had a separate one, and
Right.
then just pretend I was a DJ.
I used to do that in my bedroom.
Yeah, there you go. So we're in the same place. But
Yes.
it was the Jocks of '75 and '74 that kind of gave me that inspiration to really want to pursue it. And in high school, when it was time to go to college, and it was time to say, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a radio announcer or something in TV. And to this day, a lot of people, on my Facebook page, of people that I know from back in the day, they would say, Phil, you did exactly what you said you were going to do. And I said, yeah, I was blessed to be able to do that, and do it for quite a long time and had some success with it. So it's been kind of in my blood my whole life, and me and my coworkers always used to joke and say, there's nothing like being in radio. There's no other job like it. It's like a drug. Once it's in your system, you don't want to leave it. Yeah.
That's true.
So
that's true.
Even after 40 years, and I consider myself to have retired. I mean, somebody was
retired.
Well, if somebody were to offer me something lucrative, I would do something on a weekend. But I still
retired.
Huh?
How does you can't be no more than middle age? If
I tell you what, why don't you try to guess my age just by looking at me right now? I'm a transparent.
51.
I'm gonna let everybody know right now how 51. Old I am. You said 51?
51.
Give me 51.
If that, and I'm giving you 2-3 years.
And you're giving me 2-3 years.
That's right.
Okay. I will be 62 on Valentine's Day.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I'll be 62 years old. So I'm blessed in that category. It's a family thing,
So you were born on Valentine's Day?
I'm a Valentine baby.
So how does that work? Wait a minute. Okay. Player to player. How does that work? You got to give, who something. So they have to give you something.
Well, it's kind of like a win-lose situation. I joke about it. I have. Because, you have to give on Valentine's Day. You have somebody special in your life. There's no way in the world that you're going to say, well, I'm not going to give because it's my birthday. That's a loser off the top. You can't expect to keep in the same bed if you do that. You're married. That's not going to work. You got to bring something to it.
That's right.
So I kind of got used to that. So it was no problem. I always said that I never really celebrated birthdays like that. When some people will celebrate a birthday maybe once, twice a week. They say, well, this is my birthday week. This is my birthday weekend. If no one ever said happy birthday to me or gave me anything, I wouldn't be upset. I just thank God for being able to live another year, get a year wiser, have some fun. And I was good to go. I've always been like that. But as far as radio is concerned, it was a built-in promo, man. I mean, shoot, radio stations building promos around the Quiet Storm and Valentine's Day, because we do trips, Quiet Storm trips like maybe to Philly or you go out to California. It's a Valentine's Day weekend with Phil Nelson and you and your guests and you and your special boo. We can go and fly you tickets for 2, and then here's a concert. Enjoy X, Y, and Z. It was a great promo, but personally, it was just another day for me. So maybe that plays into my youth,
Okay. Speaking of youth, who influenced you?
Well, I have a couple. I don't have anybody directly. It's just the Jocks and radio in general. 1975 and 74, being that I'm from Hampton Roads, I am a native Hampton Roads person. I was born and raised in Newport News, Virginia, Wickham Avenue. Went to Warwick High School. And when I got in radio, of course, served the area of Norfolk, Virginia Beach, but I listened to AM radio. I listened to Daddy Jack Holmes in the morning. That's where it first started. Jack Holmes. Also from there, the Jocks from WRAP at the time was Chester B. He also had, when I was a teenager, really the one that bought me out when I was a street jock, to be honest, was Frankie Stewart, the Soul Ranger. Soul Ranger, J.D. Jackson, H.J. Ellison, who is still on the air right now. God bless him. I always joke H.J. because he has a different jersey on for whoever wins.
Right.
That's who he's for. But that's my man. See, all them guys right there, they know Little Brother Philip. So if you ever want the truth about Little Brother Philip, you go to these guys. They can really confess. So I got to do like this when you when you're talking to HJ And Chester B. There was also a guy
Oh
named
yeah,
William.
Chester B.
Also,
My
yeah, a
man.
guy named William Casey Moore that was on WPCE when it became AM. I don't know
Hmm.
where he is now. And also
Chester
Frank,
B is still on.
huh?
Chester B is still
Oh
on,
yeah,
ain't it?
Chester B. But I was talking about
Yeah.
William Casey Moore,
William Casey Moore, right?
KC Moore, and also Frankie Crocker from New York. Frankie Crocker from New York. Because I listened when I was in New York City during a special time of my life, my young days. I was listening to WBLS in New
Okay.
York, so that was an influence too. So you get a combination of all these guys, but I think what kind of molded me for what I was successful at was something that I never really expected because I was a street jock. You know, I was spinning music, doing the master mix. I was in the clubs, man. I
Hmm.
was for the
Hmm.
most part in Fort Eustis military
Hmm.
base and
Hmm.
Fort Monroe at Rocket Club. I was doing stuff like that and family reunions and that sort of thing. I wanted to be known as a street jock. You know, doing the mix. I'm,
Okay.
very creative with music,
Hmm.
but when they gave me the mantle in '84, I don't know if you remember. You may remember Lenny Ware.
Yes.
Lenny Ware, who did in 1975. He was doing the Quiet Storm in '75, which that was the birth
Hmm.
of the Quiet Storm in D.C. A guy named Melvin Lindsay. He's known as the father of the Quiet Storm, where it started the
Okay.
format to spread across the country. Um, they picked it up. Hampton Roads picked it up around '74, '75, and Lenny Ware did a show called Mr. Cool for Ladies Only. And around that time, my grandfather had passed, and we had two houses in the same yard in Newport News. And
Hmm.
my grandmother was alone, and it was my parents' idea that I go and stay with her, to keep her company because of, the grievance and that sort of thing. But I had a radio,
Hmm.
and I would cut on the radio, and this was on FM 103. It was known at the time. And I listened to all these slow songs and the Isley Brothers, At Your Best You I Love, and
Yeah.
Make Me Say It Again, Girl, that sort of thing. And it was so
Yeah.
smooth. And for that time of night, it was a warm summer night. I said, man, and I've always been a sensitive type guy. I love ballads and music of that type. And that what got me into the slow jams. That's what got me into the lyrics and that sort of thing. And it always stuck with me. And with the combination of all that and the guys that I listened to, that's what kind of influenced me to be where I am
Okay.
today, as far as who I became, who I am as a person. Because the Quiet Storm show is an extension of my personality. It's not like a front or anything like that. Something I prepare for.
Right.
It's who I am. I'm just a laid
Indeed.
back dude, man. That's just my psyche.
Well, all those years up to now, what got you up in the morning?
What got me up? My alarm clock.
Mm.
No, I mean,
Okay. See.
you see, one thing you have to understand, I do have a comedy side to me when I'm on
I
stage.
know, and I love it, but see, because see, you know what I mean.
Right, I
That
know,
what makes it funny.
you know, yeah, I mean, when you say got me up in the morning, you mean what was the
That
driving
kept
force?
you going, right? Got kept you motivated. I
Kept me
mean,
motivated?
we all had days when we,
Hmm.
it can
Well,
be a chore. What got you going? I mean, was it dedication? Was it the love of it?
it was the love of the game.
Hmm.
Always being able to wanting to do something different. I knew that people depended on me at night. I enjoyed the camaraderie of my listening audience. The
Hmm.
involvement. I often told stories with my music. Um,
Hmm.
at the time we didn't have social media, so we got mail.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
I used to get plenty of mail from all over Eastern
Hmm.
Shore. Which they treated us like Michael Jackson and the Jackson Five over there because nothing really went to the Eastern Shore,
Right.
but it was a large fan base over there that was part of our listening audience. But it's just the
Hmm.
camaraderie of being with my listening audience, serving them, knowing that I gave them something special at the end of the night. And I would be real hard on myself when I made mistakes. The
Hmm.
listening audience wouldn't even know I made mistakes, but I know I did. Some of my worst shows were some of the better shows for some people, for a lot of the listening audience. But
And
I
that's
got up
something.
every day knowing that when 7 o'clock or 10 o'clock came around, that I had a job to do, and that job was to make people smile, make people feel comfortable, put people to sleep so they could wake up, check out the morning show at six
Hmm.
o'clock. So
Right.
that was it. I just knew I had a responsibility, and I loved what I do. love what I did too at the time.
If you were starting out today, what would you do differently? Because everything's different than then.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
If I could start over again, I would pretty much like try to do it the same way, with just with some tweaks. That's all, because the game has changed so much. I would just like to take
Right.
it back to where it was. If I were to program a radio station, I would program it the way I just explained it in the beginning. Let that Quiet Storm be a specialty show. Put somebody in
Hmm.
that hot seat that knows the music, knows exactly how to feel the audience, someone that loves the audience, somebody that loves the demographic, and let them do
Hmm.
what they need to do. Hands off programmers,
Right.
of the Quiet Storm. You got your hands full with 6 to 10, 10 to 3, 3 to 7.
Hmm.
If your storm is 7 to 12, leave it alone. Unless there's something wrong, you're not getting the numbers that you want for your morning show, leave it alone. So I would go back and do it like it was yesterday. Of course, with
Hmm.
the technology that we have now, I mean, man, if I had the technology back in the 80s and early 90s,
Yeah.
I mean, I could take this thing, I mean, it would be endless, because the
Right.
hottest time, my hottest, I guess you could say the most successful time that I had with my show were the 90s, which are considered the old school beats of today. Because if you listen to the adult stations, they're playing the 90s now. That was for
Right.
me
Right.
back then. So you could take that now and put that on social media and fly with it. I mean,
Oh yeah.
just have
Yeah.
a field day. So I would take it back. That's what I would do differently today.
Think
Yeah,
about it.
I'll take
Okay. Now, but let's reverse this. If you knew then what you know now, would you do something different back then?
Well, today I'm a man of God.
Okay.
So my heart is different
Well.
than it was. Well, than it was back in the day. So the way I would approach things would be totally
Mm,
different.
come on.
I think honestly, God allowed my talent to flourish, and then allowed me to go through some things later on in life, only
Okay.
to bring me back a different man, so he can take me to the
Amen.
next plateau.
Amen.
So if I knew then what I knew now, I probably
Hmm.
would have accepted him a lot more, a lot quicker than I did then.
I'm
And
writing
then,
all this stuff
like
down.
you mentioned
You
before, I
know.
knew of him. I guess you could say I knew of him at that time, but I didn't know him.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
once you
There's a
know
big
him, is
difference.
once you get touched, is you can't be the same. For those that are believers, they understand what I'm saying.
Hmm.
You can't go back, and then you start thinking back in hindsight. Okay, if that were to happen,
Hmm.
what would happen? And it's really kind of hard to say. That's why I answered it that way,
Right.
because it's a heart-driven thing. I would have did everything totally different within the parameters of my talent that was given to me.
Right.
That's all.
I'm asking questions I've always wanted to ask you.
What's that?
Out of the, you know, a lot of celebrities. Out of all of the celebrities that you've interviewed or been around, which one were you most nervous about?
I've never really been nervous around too many. I look at celebrities as being people, but I
Okay.
was intrigued with George Clinton. He was very
Hmm.
comical. You know,
Hmm.
talking to him, because I did up tempo music as well.
Right.
Um, George Clinton was a ball to interview, because you really didn't have to say too much. He'd just run his mouth. All you had to do is like, ladies and
Uh-huh.
gentlemen, George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic, and that was it. It was like a switch.
That was it.
Let him talk, and then okay, we'll be back with more with George Clinton, and then fired it back up. I think a person that I really enjoyed, not necessarily interviewing, or being around, was Phyllis Hyman. Um,
Okay.
you know,
I got to see
yeah,
her.
she was a queen. Well, they
Yeah.
did Phyllis Hyman in the mid '80s. That album,
Hmm.
"Meet Me on the Moon," because I called her an angel that went before her time. She did the club.
Right.
I think it wasn't the Royal Blue when it was around.
Hmm.
I forgot the name of the club. It was another club. We brought her to the club,
Hmm.
and I think that was a highlight for me, to be around her.
Hmm.
But she was a staple in DC at WHR long before I got up there. A lot of artists came through that radio station, because that was known for the Quiet Storm. That was the home, and that was a highlight for me. Also Prince, who a lot of people back then mistake me as when my hair was long. It was funny,
You taller though, aren't you?
huh?
Aren't you taller?
I'm told, yeah, but they didn't care about
Please
it, and
say you taller.
I didn't wear high heels neither. But they didn't. Them
Okay.
girls weren't looking at that. They didn't care. I mean, they just saw in their minds.
Right.
And he's a Nelson, I'm a Nelson, so there is a family connection, but it's a long family connection. It's a distant thing, so I
Hmm.
really don't feed into that. But a lot of people say, well, you need to do ancestry.com, and my sister did do ancestry.com and did find that there is a link um, with the Nelson family and our
Hmm.
part of our Nelson family. So she's pretty much the historian in the family with that. That gave me that information. But yeah, we brought him to Picasso's.
Mm.
And I didn't get a chance to interview him. I didn't get a chance to interview too many people because of the nighttime show. They
Right.
always came in during the day, but I had involvement
Hmm.
with them, when it
Right.
came to concerts and other types of media-driven
Hmm.
activities. But I mean, Luther Vandross, I didn't get a chance to interview him, but it was an honor just to be able to be in I guess you could say in the atmosphere of
Right.
working with him. But yeah, I mean, anybody I was able to work with dealing with the media was concerned was always something special to me. You know, I've never been
Okay.
starstruck, but there are people, and I put this on my Facebook page. There's one woman,
Hmm.
and I think all men said this about this one woman. At least
Yes, Lord.
you haven't even said her name yet, so you said
You don't have to.
yeah. You know who I'm getting ready to say?
If I ever get nearer, you'll never hear from me again. That's all there is to
I
it.
used to joke. I used to say I was going to marry Gladys Knight.
Yes, sir.
Because
I am. I'm talking about now. I am.
so you said
I
now,
am.
okay, I got you. I ain't mad
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I never worked with Gladys, but she was in concert. She just left
Hmm.
the area here just the other night. She was here
Hmm.
Thursday. I didn't get a chance to go down there at the harbor, the National Harbor. She was here, but I'll get a chance to see her again. I want to actually get a chance to see her. Well, talk to them. You know,
Right.
her, Patty, and Dion. Those are three of the last greats that we have.
They're leaving, aren't they?
And,
Especially with Tina Turner passing away.
yeah, I mean,
They're
yeah,
leaving.
I mean
Yeah.
that's all we have left for the most part. Unfortunately, but they're leaving their marks in history. They're all
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
For what they do, and I really respect and honor that for sure.
I it just came in my mind. I saw a thing on Facebook. Our house is not a home. Dionne Warwick or Luther Vandross.
Well, she was the first to do it. I mean, but
Hmm.
she even has a crush on Luther Vandross. But
Really?
yeah, I mean, the reason why I say that because when before Luther died, I think it was
Hmm.
the Soul Train Music Awards or one of those award shows, and Luther was on, and he was singing, and Dion was like googly eyed, and because the camera kept
Yeah.
going back.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw it.
You remember that?
They sung "That's What Friends Are For."
Well, yeah, yeah, they did that, but she was in the audience because Luther was singing.
Oh.
This,
Oh. Oh.
this was
Oh.
different. He was singing.
He did a thing on her. I know what it was. The NAACP
Was that what
Awards.
it was?
They honored her, and he sung "Our House
Yeah,
Is Not a
she
Home"
was
in her
all
honor.
googly eyed like she was 15 years old, man. Never
Yeah,
looked
she
at her.
went right to the stage
Yep,
at his feet.
yep.
I saw it.
But Luther just, we only get one Luther. You know,
Yeah,
we
yeah. I know.
only get one.
I got to see him a few times, so
Yeah.
I'm so glad I
Yeah,
did.
well, he's great
Yeah,
in concert. Great. He had great concerts, great showmanship, uh,
yeah,
great stage presence, man. I mean,
yeah,
his background vocals, Lisa Fisher, and those background vocalists,
yeah,
they were phenomenal. As a matter of fact, I was watching PETA up here, which is Howard University TV, and they have
yeah.
a lot of the acts from back in the day, in concert,
Hmm.
and Luther was one of them. It was his concert from, I think it was 2000 8, something like that. And I was listening because when you go to concerts, you just really listen to have a good time, and you can hear the
Right.
acoustics and everything. But when you really listen for the dynamics, and you're not listening
Mm-hmm.
for the song and the lyrics, you're listening for the perfection of the performance, and
Right.
you could hear the perfection of the background vocals and the arrangements, and you say, God, I mean, you don't see too many concerts like that unless you're going to something other than outside of R&B. You
Right.
have the full band, the violins, all
Right.
that, and then his voice. I'm like, wow, listen to that production crew. I'm like, man. And I listened to it differently than I did when I was in concert. But yeah, he was one of those ones. Yeah, for sure. So God rest, bless him, rest in
Yeah.
peace, man. He's in heaven.
When I first saw something like that was Barry White. He came here.
Hmm.
He came to the Scope
Okay.
and brought his whole
Love Unlimited.
orchestra.
Yeah, he bought Love
Yeah,
Unlimited. Love
brought it
Unlimited,
all.
man, was off the chain, and they were like one of the
Yeah.
very first orchestras to go with a band, and they had their
Mm-hmm.
own album. If you go back to
Right.
73, 72, you got Love Unlimited Orchestra, um,
Mm-hmm.
and just their album alone. If you just listen to it, that's
Right.
that's a treat right there. That's
Yeah.
for those that really like orchestrated music and understand
Mm-hmm.
Barry White and his arrangements. I would
Yes.
I would say go and pick up Love Unlimited, and check out
Yes.
his band. You really will be
Beautiful.
impressed.
Mm-hmm. And like you see, I was raised by older people.
Right.
So when I was coming up, I'm listening to Nat King Cole, Sinatra,
Mm,
Sarah Vaughan, the standards,
right.
the big bands. I go see big bands now.
And see,
So you're used to that sound, but you didn't hear it in the 70s,
you gotta love
the
you
early
gotta
part.
love like I do for big band swing. I love big band
Yeah,
swing. Sarah Vaughan. I
yeah.
can go a little bit deeper because my father, he was a little bit older, of course. He's from a different
Hmm.
time. Mills Brothers and
Right.
um, Cab Calloway, stuff like that. I
Hmm.
love that big band swing. And I was talking
Hmm.
about that on Facebook for Father's Day when I did a tribute to him. I was
Right.
riding in my car, coming back from a place on Father's Day, and I was listening to WPFW up here in DC. That's one of the
Hmm.
independent radio stations that play that type of music. And they put on that Mills Brothers, man. I just said, that's my daddy. I said, that's my
Yeah.
daddy's music right there. Ink spots,
Hmm.
stuff like that. That brought me into the Sarah Vaughns and Billie
Hmm.
Holiday. Nat,
Hmm. Billy
I have a
Eckstein.
big love for Nat King Cole and Nat
Hmm.
King Cole Trio and things of that
Hmm.
nature. So, oh yeah, it goes deep. So I understand you very much. So,
Yeah. See. So when I started hearing, like you said, the orchestration, like the stylistics,
mhm.
you
I mean,
know,
we can go down the list. So I
yeah,
mean, it's just so many of those groups that had orchestrated music. They
yeah.
use violins, they use flutes
Oh
and
yeah.
things of that nature. And I use those things, those songs, because when the 80s came in, there was a slight difference in the style of
Hmm.
music. So I blended those songs, and it
Right.
had a smooth transition from one song to the
Hmm.
next, and it
Hmm.
told a story. And I
Oh.
played with those melodies like that, man. It just when the '90s came in, then you had the beat with the slow jam. It made it kind of hard because I kind of separated it because I wanted
Right.
like 11 and 12 to be totally smooth. So you had the whispers, your stylistics,
Hmm.
your Barry Whites,
Right.
artists like that you would play to
Hmm.
keep that real smooth, calm, laid back. There was
Hmm.
no tempo,
Right.
and that's what kind of people gravitated towards. I think they liked so much about being able to program something like that without having your hands tied, so to speak. Because when your hands are tied, then it's
Right.
all over the place. Even though
Hmm.
it's still considered quiet storm, but it interrupts your story if you're telling a story with the music.
Okay. As an African American, how would you say your experience differ, if it differed,
Hmm.
from those of your white counterpart coming up in the business?
Well, there's definitely a financial. There was a financial difference for sure.
Hmm.
As far as
Hmm.
salary, that's all. That's always been the case. African Americans have
Hmm.
always had uphill climb when it came to equal pay. That's with everything. The guys doing rock music or doing AC, adult contemporary. Salaries are higher
Mm-hmm.
than it is in R&B community. You know, that sort of thing. But I mean, that was a challenge. But the thing about it was that I didn't let it bother me because I had a love for what I was doing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I stayed at Hampton Roads as long as I did. They always told me, "Well, Phil, you can always go out west. Go to California, go to Atlanta. You know, go to
Right.
these different states." But I was never one that really liked to get up and go. A lot of my coworkers did. I said, I want to
Mm-hmm.
be a part of something great. You know, and
Community as
I'm a
well.
community oriented person, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to make a difference. Whether or not I'm being acknowledged for it now I'm still going to do what's in my heart. You know, and that really never materialized while I was still there, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to go somewhere else and leave and do some other things. And, God turns that thing around in different ways that you never really anticipate. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here with you today, because I'm doing some other things along with building on top of the legacy that I built in Hampton Roads and also in Washington, D.C., that I would have never thought would have been possible, when I was down there in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
So,
And the latest thing that you're doing right now, uh, could you share it with us?
well, I have my own business, which is Nelson Media and Investments.com.
Mm-hmm.
I do my own
Mm-hmm.
voice business,
Right.
um, voice tracking, commercials. I mean, a lot of people may have remembered me on 103. A lot of those commercials were my voice,
Right.
Um, but I decided to do that on my own because I was very, very successful with the fact of being able to be able to orchestrate and put things together. I do that very well outside of my show duties. So I'm doing that, offering services, definitely
Mm-hmm.
businesses, radio stations, whoever needs a
Mm-hmm.
voice, to voice their project, especially for recording artists. I just wrapped up one
Right.
a couple of days ago for an artist up here in DC. And it's going pretty well, but just like all businesses, they don't start off right away. You got to, build it up and build it up. And that's what this is all about as far as me talking to you,
Right.
rating myself with my audience, letting them know what's going on with me. We're going from, excuse me, going from state to state, different areas, but that's the build up to
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen next year, which I'm
Oh.
in the motions right now of writing my book, you know,
Right. Yes. The
the
book.
book, and the book consists of some of the things that I was talking about with you today, but also
Mm-hmm.
my life in the music industry, radio in general, my influences, um, being at the pinnacle of my career and also in the valley of my career and the
Right.
redemption. It's going to be called In the Eye of the Storm, The Quiet Storm.
All right.
Peace be still.
When can we expect it?
Sometime next year. There's no date.
Sometime
We're
this
in
year.
preparations right now. Me and my publicist. I have a great publicist. I don't know if she want me to mention her name right now. She'd be kind
Okay.
of shy, but
I
yeah,
understand.
I'll keep that kind of under wraps right now. But she's a great person. I think I'm in great hands with the person I involving myself with right now. So
Right.
I'm very
To,
confident. She keeps me on the level. Let's put it like.
all right. All right. To be in your great hands, how would a person contact you for your services?
Okay, you can go to nelsonmediainvestments.com. It's spelled just the way I said it. Nelson, NELSON, MEDIA, investments, INVESTMENTS.com. There's contact information there. You have a box where you can leave your email, your phone number, um, get on the email list. I'm very good with returning calls and email, especially email. I do email better than phone calls, but you can leave your
Mm-hmm.
information and I'll get back with you. The investment side, if you're trying to really make some money, short-term investments, long-term investments, that's the other side. When it comes to the stock market, that sort of thing, I do that too. But my son
Oh.
Jamel Nelson, he runs that portion of it. He's the numbers guru. So if you need advice and that sort of thing. Click on where it says investments, and that goes straight to
Mm-hmm.
his website. He does webinars every day. He helps people to make money, and he knows what he's doing because I have some of my money laying over there with him. So,
There you go.
so I really trust him and what he's doing. So, if you need insight from a young brother, I'm talking about my son is 27. So that's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
the age demographic where they're doing a lot of shifting and changing and selling and buying in the stock market. So if you're listening and you're around that age, even if you're outside of that age limit, he helps people that are my age and a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, that's trying to get insight. You can hit the investments part of my website. But for voice, you have demos there. You can leave me information, see who I am. Pretty much there's an about page. It's pretty thorough. So yeah, I look forward to hearing from anybody that's interested in and wanting to check out my services.
Praise the Lord. Last question. Finally got it all out. What do you say to a person starting out? What should they do to get going and sustain
I
it
was, I
nowadays?
was just having that conversation with a coworker the other day because
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of talented young people out here, but I think some of us, or some of them rather, are a little, I won't say too ambitious because they want things quick. They don't want to be patient with the process because we work in a microwave community or a microwave world now where, we put it in 30 seconds, we expect it to pop out, everything is okay because we have social media, we got these different platforms that we can fly on,
Right.
and it's endless. But even though we do have those social media platforms, I would say to any young person, especially when they're trying to get into the game these days, be patient. Do the best you can with what you have. Don't rush the process. Take the time to groom your talent. Everybody has to
Mm-hmm.
pay dues. Okay? Everyone has to
Mm-hmm.
pay dues. There's no such thing as a shortcut because if you happen to make a shortcut and get to a certain place, there may be certain, but you may need that experience to answer some things, but you haven't gotten it. You just were blessed enough to make a shortcut. And that may knock you back. They may get you fired. You may get you dismissed or what have you. But I would just say, please be patient. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Groom your talent. Do what you're supposed to do. Let the let your history and your outcome speak for you. Let the proof in the pudding show. Not your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And most of all, be humble in what you're doing. Don't get into the game to be heard. Don't get in the game to be seen. Don't get in the game to be to talk about I'm a radio broadcaster or I'm on TV. Just be you. And when you be
Right.
you and you let the people feel who you are, success comes with it. It always happens because then you form a camaraderie with your audience. You form a situation where they're comfortable with you. They know you. They may not know you personally, but when they say, "Okay, I know Phil," or I know Clarence. I listen. I listen to the shows. I feel like I really know them because they make me comfortable. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll stick with you. And then as they stick with you, then you're able to generate a new audience because you continue to grow. You get older, and as you get
Right.
older, you start to go into another demo. You know, and that's what happens to a lot of us. We get too old for the demo. That's why you don't hear from us anymore. It's not that we don't have the skill set. We just don't fit the
Mm-hmm.
demo for today. Mainstream.
Right.
So if you can continuously do that, if you starting the game in your 20s and you can continue to generate an audience through your 30s and your 40s, you're on your way to be successful. You're on your way to what they call an icon or a legend or somebody that's been in the game that they look up to later on in life. You can't be in the game 2, 3 years and expect that type of gratification. If so, that's just too much. That's
Yeah.
personal grandeur. You don't want to do that. So just get in the game and just do your best. And for people that have questions, look up to the ones that came before you. They have a
Mm-hmm.
wealth of knowledge waiting for you.
Amen. I want to thank you for coming on. I've learned a lot. I try to learn from anyone. And before you go,
Mm-hmm.
if you would give out the contact information to contact you again, and you can have the last word, whatever you want to say.
Okay. Once again, my contact information, NelsonMediaInvestments.com. That's the website. Go there and get on the email list. Leave me a message. Um, and I just want you to stay positive. Keep listening. There's more to come with me. There's going to be more series of interviews and some other things coming. So the only thing I can do is stay tuned. Some of the things that I've been talking about today will be in the book coming up next year. It won't be a tell-all, but it'll be close to it. But I'm very excited about that, and I think you may be interested in that. Once it hits the stores, we're gonna do some fantastic things, and I'm really excited with this phase in my life at this time.
I appreciate you. I want to thank Dr. Glenda P. as well. This wouldn't be possible without her as well, and I want to thank her. And if there's anything we can do on this end, just holler.
Well, Kenneth, you're a scholar and a gentleman, and I appreciate you.
I'll go on with the scholar, and we'll leave it at that. Oh boy,
okay,
that might have.
I will say this though, Kenneth. I will see you at the presidential awards coming up in Virginia in August.
Okay,
I'm hosting that show. Yeah, I meant to say that. For the listening audience, we do have the Lifetime Presidential Awards happening in August. I think it's August 28th, 26th in Virginia Beach. The Maya Obendorf building.
Right.
Yeah. From 1 until 3. So, I mean, it's for invitation only, but we have a lot of honorees, including Kenneth Williams. He's going to be an honoree this year coming up. So,
oh my,
oh yeah, how about that?
Okay,
you're special too, man. You've been doing some things, So
well,
congratulations to you, and we have a whole list of others that you'll know about later on as time goes on. But once again, thank you, Kenneth, for having me today. I really appreciate it.
And praise God for it.
Yes, sir. He's good.
All right. Thank you so much, and I'll see you down the road.
There you go. Not a problem. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
All right.